Welcome. Welcome back. Believe it or not, we're moving on to a second episode. Uh this is the Colonel and the Kid podcast. I'm Greg Heitmann, and I'm hosting the podcast, I guess. Primary host and only host. I'm still without a guest today and without a producer, so I'm executive producing my own show, trying to do my best to make it worth your while to listen in and be infotained. And I guess I should probably just go ahead and remind people why it's the Colonel and the Kid podcast, because um, this is the spine of my whole podcasting venture right now. It is about memoir of my grandfather, my mother's dad, Grandpa Hagen, as I knew him. A lot of people called him the Colonel because he was a colonel in the Army, lieutenant colonel, and people refer to him as the Colonel as a sign of respect, and very, very proud of that fact that he was so well respected within his community in Siston, South Dakota, small town up in northeast corner of South Dakota. And I'm just trying to, I guess, document and preserve the memory of my grandfather so that it'll last forever in at least um, digital form. So I'm putting together this podcast based on my memoir and talking about each chapter and trying to challenge myself with my read aloud skills. And we'll be reading chapter 2 today out loud. And it's a pretty good one. I have some distinct memories of this that may or may not be true, because it's funny how we could trick ourselves into what we think are our memories. But I'm going to share them anyway. True or false? Maybe this is, I say this is my first work of nonfiction. I've written 9 other books, and this is my 10th book and the first nonfiction. But sometimes I wonder myself if if it is truly nonfiction, or if I've just imagined things, or thought about things so long that I believe things that were never true in the first place. But yeah, it probably doesn't matter that much. It's just something that can be shared and hopefully enjoyed by everyone. And I guess maybe that's my main point and example of this, of doing what I'm doing with the memoir and now the podcast, is trying to light a fire under other people to talk to their grandparents right now while they're still alive and with us, and you can document some of their stories and really document the memories that you have, because over time they kind of fade and maybe they become nonfiction memories, like maybe I'm I'm going through right now. So welcome to the podcast, and I'm glad you're here, and hopefully you're enjoying it, and liking and subscribing and whatever podcast speak that people like to say. Um, Please go ahead and share, and you can send me questions. You can email me at G_MANN_junior@yahoo.com if you have some questions and burning issues and corrections, maybe whatever it is that you'd like to share with me. And that corrections, that reminds me, I think I did misspeak on the first podcast when we're already having corrections on that. And I think at one point I said that the Colonel was my father's father, which that's totally incorrect. And I think that was even when I was reading it from my memoir. And I'm pretty sure it's not written that way. I don't know why I would say that, why I would read it that way if that was the case. I need to go check my notes on that, but I'm pretty sure it came out across as my father's father, but it's not. It's my maternal grandfather, Colonel Edwin P. Hagen Jr. And hopefully that's not adding to a lot of confusion to people. If if they're paying attention, and all of a sudden that comes up and it's like, what's going on here? Who's confused? I was confused, I guess. It's probably pretty obvious that it was my mother's father, because his name is Colonel Edward P. Hagen Jr. and my name is Greg Heitmann, so we have different names. So that would probably indicate that it's my mother's father. Got that cleared up, hopefully, and that correction documented. So I just was taking some notes, and I was, wanted to introduce things I had written down. Welcome to everyone. And for some reason, it just went into my mind with the German accent. My last name is German background. Heitmann, apparently, I think it's the interpretation is height is associated with wild, so it's a wild man. Maybe my ancestors were uh, just uncouth and uneducated and unsophisticated Germans that lived in the highlands of the German hills, and they were outsiders, so they were called Heitmen and the wild men of the area. So I I believe that's true. I think there was some research done on that and documented, but I'm not going to swear to it because who knows how accurate the research was. But you can just call me Heitman. So anyway, I was just thinking about that German background and how the Germans have a hard time saying, you know, the W, and they say welcome, willkommen. And I was doing some just Googling on that to see why that is. And apparently they just don't have that w sound and in their language. And so when they try to learn English, that just doesn't exist. So it turns into a V. So if they're trying to say wine, can I have some red wine? It's red vine. And that could be very confusing for a lot of English people. If they want a red vine, that'd be licorice versus a glass of red wine, fermented grape juice with alcohol. Anyway, um, I think it shows up, and I think probably lots of people, maybe comedians, have made, uh, you know, done comedy sets about that disparate pronunciation of letters we have, and being the typical American that I am, that we believe, I'm going to say that we believe the world revolves around America, so that everyone should speak English and they should speak it properly and well. And it's obviously not true that that everyone doesn't speak English. And um, I have a lot of respect for people that can speak multiple languages, because that's been a real difficulty for me in my life, trying to learn other languages. And I've lived in New Mexico for 20 plus years, and I've never learned Spanish. My brain just does not work that way where I can learn a foreign language for some reason. It's really weird and frustrating to me that I just can't seem to learn that language, a different language. I mean, I can get some words here and there, but just to be able to speak it fluently and write it and understand people that don't know how to speak English and they only speak Spanish, it's just mystifying to me. So anyway, a weird tangent to start the show, the V and W controversy from the German language, and which I just, to me, is a weird question too that came to mind, is why do we call it W? Why isn't it a double V? Because it's not two U's the way we write it. It's a V connected to another V, so it's a double V, and we say W though. So I mean, English is probably very confusing to people that are learning it also. I've heard different arguments about how difficult it is to learn English, and then I've heard how simple it is. I think it's probably easy to learn the basics of English, but all the weird idioms that we use and all the weird, um, just the W and double versus double V type stuff that we learn as a child and grow up with, and a person that doesn't know English probably thinks that's just very confusing, looking, you know, looking inside from outside how the English language works. Anyway, I'll move on. I'm not going to dwell on that, and I wanted to get right into the the reading of the Colonel and the Kid memoir, and it's chapter 2 today. So I'm gonna take a drink of water, get ready to do my reading. So it is chapter 2, and the subheading for chapter 2 is the age-old question. And it's the age-old question. If you're just listening to this, I'm trying to put air quotes around the word age, because this talks about age today. And each chapter I like to start with a quote. And the quote's from Victor Hugo. And today's quote is, quote, 40 is the old age of youth, 50, the youth of old age, end quote. And that was Victor Hugo. And I'm, I'm now 56 years old. So now I think about that. It's like, oh, okay. This quote had probably meant nothing. It probably means nothing to people that are 20 years old. It's like, man, whatever. But now it's like, yeah, I understand that very much so. Jump right in. I truly struggled to begin writing this memoir because I had no idea where to start. I was looking for a hook, something to grab you, the reader, and encourage you to stay with the story. This isn't that type of story. It isn't a roller coaster ride of emotional ups and downs. That said, I decided to start at the beginning. There may have been an opportunity to jump into this tale midstream and flash back and forth, but my documentation isn't a truly straight line account of the history. I'll try to do my best to make it work. This is my first memory of my grandpa. How old are you? I questioned Grandpa as we drove down the highway between Rolla, North Dakota, and Belcourt, North Dakota. As I write this, I had to look up what highway it was, and through the magic of Google Maps, it turns out that highway is US Highway 281. That highway has an amazing connective tissue in my life, but I leave that subject for a later time. I will say that US 281 has shown up near 3 places that I have lived, miles apart, first in North Dakota, then in South Dakota, and finally in Texas. It is amazing to me how a person's mind can still paint an image of the situation, even 47 years later. For me, there's a severe lack of detail to this memory, so much so that it becomes a fuzzy outline at the edges, and I doubt its actual existence. Did I just imagine it? I'm aware that people with perfect recall exist in the world. You could ask them a question about a day in their life 20 years ago, and they'd know everything about it. The time they woke up in the morning, the clothes they were wearing, what they had for lunch, and anything else in exquisite detail surrounding that event. That is not how my memory works. The peripheral particulars evade me. Details of my age-old question, in quotes, and Grandpa's answer have faded to nothing. Yet I remember Grandpa's answer after having asked the question to him, "How old are you?" I have led myself to believe Grandma and Grandpa Hagen were visiting on this particular occasion. We lived in Belcourt, North Dakota at the time. It was awesome to see them. It was special. For most of my childhood until age 11, we lived pretty far away from family. In Belcourt, we were 300 miles away, so seeing the grandparents was a special occurrence. As I review the timeline, this would have been around the time my younger brother Garrett was born. I speculate Garrett's arrival was the reason they had driven the 5 hours to visit, but this remains unconfirmed. It is not necessarily relevant to the story. Nonetheless, Grandpa and Grandma Hagen had come to visit us in Belcourt. I sit here and laugh out loud as my brain churns through the data, modern and historic, as I strain to make sense of how things in the past and present interconnect and why I can't even remember this minutia. As I write this, my niece Caitlin is expecting her first child. Her dad is Grady. Grady is my older brother and he happens to be 15 years old. 54 years old as I type this. So I sit here doing the math to see how my generation relates to Grandpa's generation when it comes to family production. When I first heard the news that Grady was going to be a grandfather, it instantly came to mind that he was going to be the new old timer. It's the perfect transition of the title. But back to the story. I sat there, presumably buckled into the passenger seat of Grandpa's Plymouth. I'm not sure about the seatbelt. It was a different time and seatbelts weren't the law. Actually, I probably should have been in the back seat if we were to follow today's safety standards. We were heading west down US 281 from Rolla back to our house in Belcourt. How old are you? I asked Grandpa, my face scrunched, my eyes squinting up to the man behind the wheel, truly wondering how old he might be. Why I was with Grandpa alone in the car is something that evades my memory. Looking back, the time frame would seem to fit the birth of Garrett, with my younger brother 5 years my junior. My guess is that we had too many people to fit in one vehicle, so we had to take 2 cars to a restaurant for lunch. The way it occurs to me now is that it was a dreary day, overcast, but raining, so there's plenty of visibility as we ease down. Not raining, so there's plenty of visibility as we ease down the open road. How old are you? Emphasis on old, I asked. Grandpa, without hesitation, replied to the roadside sign with a nod. I'm the speed limit. The coincidence of a 55 mile per hour speed limit roadway sign came into view. just over my sight line above the dashboard. 55? I questioned to a nod from Grandpa. I guess that satisfied my curiosity. That's all I remember about the trip back to the government house, which we lived. Belcourt, North Dakota, on the Turtle Mountain Indian Reservation, still holds a special place in my heart. The whole age question is really what inspired me to try to record thoughts of my grandfather, especially when I turned 50 years old myself a year and a half ago. It got me thinking about the numbers behind how old people were relative to the ages of my nieces and nephews compared to when I was their age. It's something you can't appreciate until you have matured, quote unquote, matured. In doing the math, I guess I was 5 years old when I decided to rudely ask Grandpa how old he was. What do you expect from a 5-year-old? Grandpa was born November 17, 1919. As I write this on November 14th, 2020, in just 3 days, we will still recognize the occasion of 101 years from the date of Grandpa's birth. It seems impossible. Time just flies by. Meanwhile, in just a little over 3 months, on February 25th, 2021, I'll be 52 years old, the same age Grandpa was when I was born. Weird. There's some deeper context to this story regarding the tumultuous 1970s, including the gas shortages that led to the reduction of the speed limit to 55 miles per hour in 1974. We came first full circle in 1996 when speed limits were raised. Can you imagine driving 55 miles per hour on interstate today? As an aside, with the mention of Belcourt, my thoughts can't help but land on Shiner. Shiner, the black dog that came with the government house we had. Government housing was an option my dad took as part of his job working for the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Shiner wasn't our dog. We were his family that happened to occupy the house in his territory. Another significant joy from that Belcourt home was the sandbox. Grady and I played in that sandbox for many hours. The sandbox grew and grew. What a spectacular day it was when my dad brought a fresh load of sand for us to shape and carve with our Tonka trucks to roll over and through. I'd be remiss not to include the creek, or the stream, as people know, depending on your accent. Crick, C-R-I-C-K, was Belcourt Creek that flowed behind the nurse's residence on just the other side of a street from our government house. The creek provided hours of adventures for 2 little boys. That's the end of the chapter for the age-old question. And I like to start each chapter with a quote and end each chapter with a quote. And the quote I chose to end the chapter 2 of the age-old question is, quote, "Age is just a number," end quote, said by billions of people around the world. Anyway, I guess I made it through the reading. Not too bad. Not great, but not terrible. Could be better. Hopefully we'll improve over time. Probably better than the last time. I read from the screen this time, so my eye contact wasn't looking down at the page, which last time I had printed out, I just read from the page and tried to read from the page. Probably not very well, but I did read from the page, and we'll keep working on that and get better and better. And pretty soon we'll have our own audiobook of The Colonel and the Kid, the memoir of my grandfather. So anyway, I want to move on to some sports today because it's Friday. Friday, September 19th, I believe. And I wanted to go ahead and pick some games for the NFL. We had the game last night, Thursday Night Football, and I gave you the preview last time. There's my cuckoo clock. I guess I do have a guest today on my podcast. It's the German cuckoo clock chiming in the bottom of the hour. It's 3:30 right now, and I just noticed my watch is dead. My Apple Watch is dead, so it's not recording my heart rate during this podcast to see if I could check that and see if I was staying calm during the recording of this. So there's a giant fail for today. Anyway, picking games. So I gave a warning about the Bills and Dolphins game the other day. Was that Wednesday or Tuesday or Wednesday? Whenever I recorded that, the first one. And I was wondering how if the Dolphins would show up, and there was talk about Mike McDaniel, the coach of the Dolphins, being fired if they had a bad game or they got blown out on Thursday night, but they hung in there. It was a close game, tied at halftime, uh, in Buffalo, so Dolphins had their work cut out for them. Couldn't do it. They got beat last night, and, yeah, not too bad. I think it was by 10 points, so they hung in there, and we'll see if Mike McDaniel's job is safe for a little while longer, but I did wanna make the rest of the picks for the week. I did pick the Bills in my pick 'em pool, and, that's one thing I wanted to go through today was just these I'm not trying to encourage gambling, I discourage gambling because it can be very frustrating and you can lose money. Unless you have just a lot of extra money lying around, you probably shouldn't be gambling because it's just a waste of time and effort because it's sports. It's totally unpredictable. If you knew anything about it, if you were able to predict something, it really wouldn't be sports because it's it's total it's like flipping a coin and guessing which if it's going to land on heads or tails. I think there's just so much randomness that it's virtually impossible to pick these games. But it's fun to try to pick just and see how you do. And if you have a little extra money that you don't care about, sure, go ahead and bet on it. It's almost like just taking your paper money and lighting it on fire as far as I'm concerned. So I make these picks. I say they're on the money line. There's no um, giving 3.5 points or getting 3.5 points. Where giving or getting points at all. It's just you just pick the winners and see if they win or see if they lose. So I did. I'm in a Yahoo pool just to pick them. It's no money involved. It's just for pride, I guess. A Yahoo pick 'em pool. And I did pick the Bills last night, and they won. And didn't matter how many points they won by. It was just a straight pick 'em pool. And that's the way the picks will be all year, and we'll see how I do and tally it up and see how it goes. So this is the first full week I'm doing it, and I'll give you the report next week on the next podcast, unless something happens and I have to have an emergency podcast, and the games haven't been played. But anyway, moving on. The first game that I wanted to talk about was the Packers at Browns. And because I'm a Vikings fan, long-suffering Vikings fan, I think I had probably mentioned that last time, that, it's the Packers at Browns, and I hate the Packers. I don't think I guess that goes without saying, but I'm gonna pick the Packers to win because I think they are a pretty tough team this year. However, I don't think it's gonna be a blowout like a lot of people are talking about. I think it's gonna be a close game, and Packers will win, and, we'll know a lot more about how things are balancing out the league after this week 3 of the NFL. Yeah, starting with this game, Packers at Browns, because I think it's gonna indicate that, maybe the Browns are better than what their record is, and the Packers are probably gonna win and still be looking at 3-0, and people are gonna be jumping on that bandwagon and say, "Oh, yeah, here's the next Super Bowl winner." And I would say, yeah, tamp down the expectations on that. It's a long season. And also, Jordan Love, the quarterback for the Packers, he has a history of getting injured, so we'll see how that goes. Second game, Colts at Titans. Another game that I don't care about really. I don't like either of these teams, don't follow them that much. I'm going to pick the Colts to win this game. Just listening here and there, people are saying, "Oh, the Titans are probably gonna win. They're at home." And the Colts are 2-0 so far, and they're probably overrated. It's like, nah, I don't know. Who knows? I just think that you have Daniel Jones at quarterback for the Colts. He came into the Vikings locker room last year when he got cut from the Giants. Came in and was under the tutelage of Kevin O'Connell, the head coach for the Vikings, and he was able to probably pick up some um, good tips from the quarterback whisperer, they call him, the head coach for the Vikings. And So I guess sort of kind of root for Daniel Jones a little bit, if anything, just because he was a former Viking. The Titans are working with the rookie quarterback, Cam Ward, and there's a lot of growing pains there. So I'm just sitting with the Colts on that one. Here we go. Here's my team, the Vikings. It's the battle of the backup quarterbacks. Cincinnati Bengals at the Minnesota Vikings, and Joe Burrow's hurt. JJ McCarthy's hurt. So it's the, I don't know, what do you call it? The also Rans going this week. Both probably, might be a defensive battle with backup quarterbacks in there. Who knows? I'm not sure about all the other injuries going on, but do have probably two of the best wide receivers without their good quarterbacks in play. So you're going to see Jamar Chase for the Bengals, and you're going to see Justin Jefferson for the Vikings at wide receiver, and without good quarterbacks, maybe we'll see some of their diva personality come out. Since if they're not getting the ball enough or they're not throwing enough, we'll see. I'm picking the Vikings. They're at home. I mean, it's sort of just a coin flip. Steelers at Patriots. I don't know. Steelers defense is terrible this year. Apparently, the steel curtain is more of a, I guess, a lace, more of a lace curtain. They're allowing more points, and they got again Aaron Rodgers, from the origination from my hated Green Bay Packers, the rival of the Vikings. So I kind of cheer against him sometimes, a little bit. Well, not sometimes, most of the time. And the Patriots, tell you what, Tom Brady isn't walking through that door. So I'm picking the Steelers to be able to go ahead and beat the, or I'm picking the Steelers to beat the Patriots, and just, another game I really have very little interest in watching or hearing about, but it's gonna be played, and I'm gonna pick it, and pretty much probably a coin flip again. Rams at Eagles. Uh, I'm just going Eagles on this. They're at home. It's hard to come from the West Coast to the East Coast playing the early game. I think it's probably the early game. They're on their West Coast time, and the Eagles are defending champs, and they are playing the very conservative, boring defense first type game. They're not trying to really roll out any sort of offense yet. So I just think the Eagles will just bore us to death and on to victory. They'll be 3-0 to start. And Rams, I would never count them out, though. I would never bet real money on this game, and I would just go ahead and see what happens with the Eagles on that. And I'm not an Eagles fan either. I really dislike the Eagles fans and just their terrible attitudes and just their arrogance of how they treat other fans in, visiting fans in their stadium and everything else. And so it would do my heart good to see the Eagles lose, but I'm not picking them to lose. Mark down the Eagles on that one. Jets at Buccaneers. Don't really know. I've heard now that the Buccaneers have a lot of injuries. Justin Fields, starting quarterback for the Jets, concussion last week, is out this week, so they'll have a backup in for the Jets. I don't even know who the Jets' backup quarterback is. I'm picking the Buccaneers. Moving on. Raiders at Washington Redskins. I'm picking the Redskins. Some people call them the Commanders. I'm a traditionalist. Redskins, I have really always liked that logo of the Redskins that they used to have with the Indian chief in profile. And not to get too political on it, but I think that there was a lot of mistakes made with changing these names. I don't think it was offending anybody but some of the most sensitive people in the world out there. And again, I apologize if you are indeed offended on this, but I think that you got to keep in mind what the context of this is. This is an NFL sports team. It's there. I think it's pretty much there. The Redskins was to honor the Native Americans in the country, and with a beautiful logo like that, I think to me it said a lot about how we respect that indigenous culture of this country, and just to take it away and, shove it down the into the garbage can of history is like, it's a shame. It's a shame to me that to go and just do that to the history of the league, of the NFL, and just to history of the, being of the Native Americans being honored by this symbol on the helmet. So anyway, enough said on that. I'm picking the Redskins on that. Who knows? What's his name? Jaden Daniels, quarterback for the Redskins, is injured. He's got a sprained knee. I'm not sure if he's even going to play. Raiders are much better, I think, than what people might see. Geno Smith can be good. He has flashes of brilliance, but throws this random interception once in a while and makes some bad decisions here and there. But overall, I think the Raiders could be an improving team this year. That said, based on watching them, they played on Monday night against the Chargers. Watching their offensive line, that was a lot to be desired. So we'll see. I'm picking Redskins. Texans at Jags. Jaguars, I really don't care about either of these teams. Jaguars are at home. I'm picking them. Broncos at Chargers. I'm going Chargers. I really dislike Sean Payton, the head coach of the Broncos. He was the former coach at New Orleans when they won the Super Bowl. Back in 2009, they beat the Vikings at the Superdome, and that was the year of the Bounty Gate. Sean Payton was suspended for a year for putting bounties on people and trying to hurt people. Supposedly, that was the defensive coordinator, Greg Williams. He was suspended indefinitely, and I think he's been reinstated back in the NFL, but it's a joke. I mean, it never did anything. It's an embarrassment to the NFL that they didn't just take away their championship, because they ended up winning the Super Bowl. They beat the Indianapolis Colts, and I think it's a real a stain on the NFL that they did that, allowed that to happen, and basically tried to injure the Vikings quarterback that year in the NFC Championship game. With New Orleans Saints played the Vikings, and it was Brett Favre, and he was so beat up in black and blue. It was just a bunch of cheap shots on him, and I still feel like it's that justice was never served in that situation. Anyway, I hate Sean Payton, basically, so I'm picking against him. Doesn't mean that he can't win. I just will never cheer for him or try to, if I think there's a chance he's going to lose, I'm going to hope that he loses. So I'll move on. Saints and Seahawks. There we go. I hate the Saints because of the situation that it was a long time ago. It was a different coach, but I still hate the Saints. Saints are playing the Seahawks. I'm picking the Seahawks because it's at Seahawks, tough place to go play. It's a long trip up there. Seattle has some loud fans, can be very difficult to play up there in Seattle. So picking Seahawks. Oh, let's see. Cowboys at Bears. This is going to be interesting because I think we've seen that the Bears are terrible. Kings beat the Bears in a big comeback on the first Monday night game of the year. Then the Bears got just trounced by Detroit last week, 52-21 or somewhere around there. Just a total beatdown. And the Cowboys lost to the Eagles in a close game to open the season. And then the Cowboys beat the Giants in Dallas. And apparently the defenses are terrible for both Bears and Cowboys. So this could be a real indicator of how maybe they'll play to a 40-40 tie, and we'll know that the Cowboys and Bears are not actual contenders for anything this year. So Cowboys, that's what I'm picking this week for that game. Cardinals at 49ers. 49ers are just being bludgeoned by injuries. So I'm just going to go with Cardinals. I know it's in San Francisco, and I think that 49ers are favored. Kyler Murray, I think, can go in there and just beat him. just beat the injured team. So going Cardinals. Interesting game on Sunday Night Football. Chiefs at Giants. I mean, both teams are 0-2. You know, Chiefs are, I mean, the dynasty is apparently over. That's by all indications for the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, again, the Chiefs, going back to the Redskins reference, now we have the Chiefs here. And I mean, what's the difference between a Chiefs reference and Redskins reference? I mean, you're still trying to indicate that you have this Native American culture. The indigenous culture was very warrior-like because that's how we've transferred that image to our sports teams throughout, and we honor that warrior mentality with the names. So again, we have Kansas City Chiefs, and they NFL didn't make the Chiefs change the name. They might as well have. I mean, they changed the Cleveland Indians to Cleveland Guardians, which is just makes no sense at all to me. So anyway, so back to the Chiefs at Giants. I think the Chiefs are just gonna just demolish the Giants, and we're gonna say not so fast. Little nod to Lee Corso, retired college football analyst all these years. Lee Corso, not so fast with the Chiefs, burying the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs can, come back, get a victory, be 1-2, led by Patrick Mahomes, and be on their way to righting that ship and, um, competing for the West, the AFC West division title. I don't think they're going to make it to win the title. They might maybe squeak into the playoffs, but if the Chiefs lose to the Giants, I think we can pretty much bury that dynasty and say, yeah, their run is over and moving on to the next generation of parity in the NFL and see who the next champions are going to be. And that may be the next game. Lions at Ravens. So, I want to make sure I have the Chiefs over the Giants, but Lions at Ravens for Monday night game. This by all accounts should be a good game on paper. Lions at Ravens. Couple of top offenses in the last few years going at it. Lions have had some coaching changes at their defense and offensive coordinator positions, so they're kind of maybe a little unstable the beginning of the year. Both teams are 1-1 on the year so far. Looking forward to maybe a highly entertaining offensive game back and forth. Could be, maybe not. I'm picking the Ravens at home. A little inside my fantasy team, my primary fantasy team, I did pick up Jared Goff, so that might be the kiss of death for him. He might have a terrible game now as my fantasy quarterback. So I'm crossing my fingers that we can do better. I just got rid of Kyler Murray, and that's why I picked the Cardinals over the 49ers, because I assume since I got rid of Kyler Murray from my fantasy team that he will have a huge game and probably single-handedly carry the Cardinals to victory. And if I would have kept him, I would have for sure won my fantasy game, but I didn't. So now things are spiraling out of control. Just everything against my fantasy teams. But in this case, I am going to go Ravens over the Lions, and I will even pick a score in this one. I'm going to say Lions 27, Ravens 38. So I think it'll be fairly entertaining, but well within hand with an 11-point victory for the Ravens. Oh, and that's a lot of information to digest and hear about in our conversation with the NFL. Albeit, again, it's a one-sided conversation with my forecasting abilities for picking games. We'll see how I do. But one of the things I guess maybe I didn't mention in the inaugural podcast is that I'm a big music guy, and I do like music, and it's kind of sad that you just can't play all this music on these podcasts because of copyright stuff. And that's fine, but it's a big part of my life and a big part of culture, I think, just to be able to talk about music and consider it. And I don't think I even mentioned any of that in the first podcast, but I wanted to bring it up for this because I think I probably will be talking about um, music and my taste and my lists of music that I put together, and I in my previous career writing for my office newsletter or my organizational newsletter. It was the Federal Highway Administration, our national newsletter. I would put together my musical lists, once a quarter, and they'd be published for people to consider on my topical lists. And I'd have you know, um, lists about magic. So I'd have all songs, a whole list of songs that talked about magic, or list of talks about water in, and they're all songs that had that in their title. And today I wanted just to talk about music a little, just a quick list of songs. And these are what I listed as my perfect 10. And I came to that topic because listening to my Sirius XM radio, the classic Rewind channel 25, it's like 80s cassette tape music. That's why they call it Rewind. So you can rewind your cassette disc or cassette deck tape. And they're having a little promotion right now where you can email them and send in your 10 songs of that era, the classic Rewind era. And that's been one of the main stations I've been listening to for the last 3 or 4 months, 6 months maybe. And it's 80s music, and it's kind of rock. I guess it's rock, not pop music, classic rock almost. So I put together my 10. I'm going to send in this this list on October 10th, which is 10/10 coming up. They're just going to take people's lists, their top 10 songs, and that's going to be how they're going to pick the songs, and they're going to play people's perfect 10 lists. So I put together my list, and I'll go over that right now. So my number one on the classic Rewind list is AC/DC. You Shook Me All Night Long. And just a quick comment on that it's funny that I guess maybe it's to describe a musical taste. I have I guess, a wide ranging, eclectic musical taste on for my songs I collect and that I buy. I buy songs still from iTunes and Amazon, and I actually own digital copies of them. I mean, it seems like most people, they've gone away from even buying anything. They'll use Spotify and have their lists that they create on that. And I don't know. I guess I curate my own lists of songs and music that I hear. And I do have Sirius XM subscription, so I do listen to that quite a bit in the house and in my car. But um, for the most part, I like to own the songs, be able to put them together the way I like them in different orders and playlists and stuff like that. But AC/DC is kind of a weird outlier for me. It's more hard rock, and I would call the guy that he's singing his song, but it's more like screaming. But I don't know, it's still pretty good to me. And I'm not saying it's my number one song ever of all time of this list or any other list, but I mean, it falls on my list, and it just happened to take this. It just came to me as the first item that I came to this list. So go down to number 2 is Queen, Crazy Little Thing Called Love. That's one thing that I wanted to vary the list so I didn't have any repeat artists on it. So I have different artists from that genre, that generation, and the rock genre. Crazy Little Thing Called Love. I really like that song, and I really like the cover of Dwight Yoakam doing it for the Gap commercial many years ago. He did a cover of that, country song, country cover of Crazy Little Thing Called Love. If you haven't seen it, you should Google it, check it out on YouTube, and just check out that arrangement. Number 3, Pat Benatar, Shadows of the Night. Like Pat Benatar, she's got quite a few hits. But Shadows of the Night, they used to play that The pep band used to play that when I was in high school sports, and at halftime and pregame, they'd be playing that in the band. I always thought they did a really good job arranging that and playing that with, their brass dominant brass instruments dominated in the band and sound, and I thought that always sounded really good, and had to put it on the list. The Who, You Better You Bet. I really get a kick out of that song. The Who has a ton of hits, and I guess they are wrapping up their career. This is the last few concerts they're doing in October, and they're going to be hanging it up. I think they're what in their 80s. Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey, those guys are in their 80s and still touring. Uh, I don't begrudge them anything. They can retire and have a peaceful life when you're 80. I don't sure don't. I guess if you want to do it, that's great. But I don't think we should begrudge them anything if they want to retire. Number 5, I have Bon Jovi, and you probably don't know this song. This wasn't a big hit for them, I don't think. Maybe it wasn't. I'm not even sure it was released, but it's a song called "She Don't Know Me." And I heard it when I was in South Dakota in the local classic rock station. And I was like, I don't think I've ever heard this song before. And it's really got a good melody to it. But it's got that Bon Jovi flavor, distinct Bon Jovi. And um, I don't think I've even heard it on the classic rewind station from Sirius XM, but I'm hoping they'll play it and kind of put it in their rotation. Number 6 is sort of a, one hit wonders, small, local, more of a local, I think, very regional band that's in this rock genre. Steel Breeze. I don't know if you guys remember them, and the song called "You Don't Want Me Anymore." It's more of a pop rock song probably, and it's the only song I know that they had, and I don't think they've played on Sirius XM Classic Rewind either, but I'm hoping they pick my list and they'll play it and bring it back into the rotation. And number 7 is Vixen. It's a female lead singer rock band, and their song is "Edge of a Broken Heart," which I tie back to the list because Bon Jovi had a song called "Edge of a Broken Heart," but this is Vixen's version, totally different song. It's not a cover version of Bon Jovi's song or anything. I'm not sure which one came first, but I think Vixen's "Edge of a Broken Heart" came first. But I think I did hear this on Classic Rewind, so I'm hoping they get enough input from that and put it back in more of a full rotation. Billy Idol, "Hot in the City" comes in at number 8 for me, and that's just a classic song. I think the first time I ever heard it, I think I was visiting my cousins in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and that was the big city for me going down there in that trip, and heard it on the radio. And I remember my cousin talking about that song, and they have a part where the song kind of stops for a second, and they yell out, the name of a city, and the default was New York. They yell out New York, but I think that a lot of the bigger cities had their own own name interjected into the song, so they would have that pause, and they could say Sioux Falls instead of New York. And Billy Idol, I think he's very underrated as a performer and singer. And I don't think he's in the Rock Hall of Fame. I think there's been a big push to get him in, and I think there's sort of some hard feelings that he's not there already. And hopefully he'll get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which I've never been to, like to go to. Maybe I'll do that sometime in my newly retired state. Number 9, I could have put quite a few songs from Billy Squier. There's 6 or 7 songs of Billy Squier that I like. I chose "In the Dark" because it seems like it's not as heavily played. I'd like to sneak that in there for Sirius XM on Classic Rewind on my Perfect 10. And of course, I wanted some Bad Company on my list. At number 10, I put in "If You Needed Someone." And that's kind of a slower ballad song from Bad Company. And there's my German cuckoo clock, German craftsmanship, chiming in at the 4 o'clock hour. It could have just waited till I got through the list of my perfect 10, but no, it interrupted number 10. If You Need Someone by Bad Company. Bad Company, I think, is going to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and Paul Rogers, that, and he's going in. He's the lead singer for most of the Bad Company songs that you might know of. Now I won't go through the list because I don't want to get distracted. Let me wrap this up here pretty quick. But those are my top 10 for it's called My Perfect 10 at SiriusXM.com. That's where you can email your songs if you want to do it. I'm going to do that as soon as I get done with this podcast. Email them my list and then listen on October 10th, 1010, the Perfect 10 list on SiriusXM. So no sponsors today. I guess I'm kind of hyping SiriusXM, so maybe they'll be my sponsor, one of my sponsors. And again, SiriusXM, please don't sue me if you don't, want to be associated with me. I know you probably don't. I am a customer, but I know it's might be a little, what can I say, controversial to be associated with this podcast, and sometimes I might say something terrible. Who knows? Anyway, I think I'm going to wrap it up there. We got plenty of information to share this week, and try to keep going on, and look forward to seeing you next week on Colonel and the Kid podcast. That's it for today. I won't say goodbye. I'll just say until next time. And I'd like to end again with the maybe a little more inspirational stuff, where the world tends to be a glass half empty attitude, seems like lately. So I like to maybe push you in a little more active direction and stay positive. So I end with these words: knock and the door will be open to you. Seek and you will find. Ask and you shall be given. Thank you for joining today, and look forward to more in the future.